Hello, everybody. Welcome to week 14, chapter 14. We're getting very close to the end. So, as I get started, just another public service reminder. If you have outstanding assignments, if you have outstanding homework, please reach out. We can work on a way to get those submitted for you, probably for partial credit, but better than no credit, right? So, if you're worried about your grade or would like to improve your grade, please reach out as soon as you can, and we'll start getting some of these tools up and running for you so you can work on your grade a little bit. Also, just a reminder, the project for this semester is due next Friday, May 5th. So please make sure you're working on that. Again, if you have questions, reach out right now. I mean, we need to get this going. So you should already be well into it. It's a big project. So if you have questions, concerns, reach out right now because it's due in just over a week. It's at the end of week 15 and it's actually due on that Friday, May 5th. So please pay attention to the dates and make sure you're getting everything submitted on time so we can finish out the semester strong. So only 2 more weeks, and the last week is your final exam. So it's coming up real quick. So please make sure you're staying on top of all those dates. All right, so we're moving into section 6 of the book, Information, Accounting, and Finance, the meat of the business, right? So we've been talking about basically the heart of the business, the employees, how to motivate them, your products, all great stuff, but we're moving into the meat now, right? How do you run your business, the actual finance and accounting parts of it. So chapter 14 is a discussion on social media, which is huge. I mean, it's a fairly new discussion still in the business world, or any world really. I mean, social media is overall a fairly new concept. Advertising, as we learned in the previous weeks, is even still relatively new in the terms of business world, but social media, it's new. It's within the last 20 years or so. So it's a very new concept, and some businesses do it really well, and some businesses do not do it really well. So let's jump in. Section 1.4, examine 1.4, 14.1, they're not even close. 14.1, examine why it's important for a business to use social media. Well, I mean, we know why it's important, right? Everybody uses the internet. So the book in one part says 79%, in one part it says 89%. So either way, it's a high number of adults and and kids. It's harder to market to kids, and that's it's kind of frowned upon in the social media world of marketing to kids. Not that people don't do it, but they're talking about adults only. But a good majority of adults use some form of social media. So it's important for businesses to use social media to be part of people's everyday lives, right? You want your brand, your products, your whatever it is, just ingrained in people's lives. You want it to be something they think about or use on a daily basis. So that's partly what social media does. It just gets it in front of people more rapidly. So even though companies use social media to share information about their products and services and to improve their customer service, many businesses are still uncomfortable with this method of communication because they don't have much control over what happens. And that's true, right? So think about like an Amazon, right? They have ratings out there for all their, people can leave whatever they want. They can say 1 star, 5 stars, anything in between. They can say basically anything they want in a review. And of course, Amazon has, and most businesses that you rely on social media or have a huge web presence, they have AI or bots that clear out some stuff for them, but not everything. So they're only looking for keywords that get, or key ideas or phrases that get taken out. So, I mean, they could have, they can't really limit what people, I mean, they can to a certain extent, but for the most part, they don't limit what people say about their products or services. So, and what they say, once it's on the internet, it's out there. Even if you delete it, it's there. Somebody else can find it. So, PSA for you personally, and as an associate of a business who uses social media, or a business owner who is thinking about social media, once something is on the internet, it's there forever. So Really businesses have to be a little wary of using social media, and be careful about what actually gets put out there or said. Um, 14.2, discuss how businesses use social media tools. So obviously there is a wide array of social media tools, and you probably even know more about them than I do, right? So there's the book lists blogs, photos, videos, podcasts, social media, like the different platforms like Facebook and Twitter and Instagram and TikTok and all the different things that are out there. And then they talk about a social game. So some companies actually put some gamification um, in their web presence, whatever it is, social media or their website or whatever, to get people to interact, right? To get them there, to keep them there, um, doing stuff. So it says, a business can create their own game, or they can place ads in other games. So like if you are playing a game, I'm old, so I like Candy Crush and Bejeweled and those kind of things. But in between levels, you get ads, right? Sometimes you look at them, sometimes you don't. Sometimes you're just waiting for them to be done so you can get rid of them. But that's another way that businesses can use social media in games, right? So they can create their own games and have people playing on their own platform or whatever. Or they can place their ads or their products into other games that you're playing. Explain business objectives for social media. I mean, I think that's fairly self-explanatory, right? It's kind of the same as why it's important. Businesses can use social media to build a community. Communities include both forums and wikis. Other reasons would be crisis and reputation management, listening to stakeholders, targeting customers, marketing, generating new product ideas, and recruiting employees. So, I mean, if you're doing any of those things, you really have to have some kind of a web presence. 14.4 talks about developing your social media plan. So first of all, why? Why are you making a social media plan? Like why is it important to your business? Once you establish what the objectives are, I'm sorry, once you determine why you need it, then you set the objectives. That's your second step, right? So you're setting a SMART goal, basically. SMART is specific, measurable, achievable, realistic. They also add in oriented toward the future, so forward thinking. So those are the goals you're establishing. You're establishing social media objectives that are specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and oriented toward the future. You'll hear that many times. SMART goals. That's what a SMART goal is. That acronym SMART. You'll hear that many times throughout your career. That's something that most HR departments stress pretty hard. After listing your objectives, the third is to identify your customer or your market, right? So where you choose to place your ads, or where where you determine your social media presence should be, is basically going to be based on your target audience, right? So older people maybe don't use TikTok or Twitter or whatever it is, right? So you need to determine where your target market does the majority of their internet work, because that's where you would get the biggest bang for your buck where you're marketing. After you have identified your market, then you're going to determine what platform you're going to use. And then lastly, of course, implement. And then once you implement, now you need to evaluate. So you've determined who, where, when, why, all those things. So now you go back to your performance measures, right? So you're paying money to advertise, or you're paying money for whatever it is on as a web presence. So now you need to go back and determine if it's working. So you're using quantitative and qualitative measures. So quantitative is numbers. That's your data. That's your, we placed X number of ads, we had X number of click-throughs, we had X number of people who ordered based on this campaign. Whatever it is, those are the numbers. Like, that's the quantitative part. It is quantitative, it is quantitatable. So it's quantitative. It's quantifiable. Quantitatable is not a word. It's quantifiable. And then qualitative is your more like your customer service or your soft skills, right? So qualitative the book defines it as a process of accessing opinions and beliefs on the brand, and a primary use is sentiment analysis to categorize what's being said about your company. So that's more the customer service part of your brand or your product. What are people saying and why? Not the numbers part of it. The meaning of e-business. So you can have an online presence. You can, um, but still have like a physical store or whatever if that's what your business is. But an e-business is something that's handled completely online. So think of like an Amazon, right? They're an e-business. They don't have many or any brick and mortar stores, right? They're all online. Everything you do, for the most part, with Amazon is online. So that's an e-business. Um, and that can be better or worse, depending, right? So Amazon obviously is a very extreme example, but there's a lot of smaller businesses. Think of like Warby Parker. They're new, right? You did a study on them earlier, new-ish. You did a study on them earlier, but Warby Parker is online, and they do what has historically been considered something that had to be done by a doctor in an office, and had to be done in person. They've made a way for it to be done as an e-business, and they're very successful at it. But that an e-business is done completely online. There's not a physical interaction. So it can be easier or harder to meet your customers' needs depending on the market that you're in and what your customers' needs are. So like in the case of Warby Parker, it was harder to meet the needs of their customers because historically it's needed a physical interaction, but they found a way to make it easier, theoretically, for someone to do it themselves than to go to a doctor to do it. So then they talk about the fundamentals of an e-business. So just like we talked about before, we've had this discussion already, business to business companies obviously are businesses that sell only to each other. Their B2B model. A B2C model is a business that sells to a customer. So they talk about Walmart, Amazon, Warby Parker. So it's somebody who sells to a consumer, which is us, people who are buying things, not other businesses. And then they talk about the effects and the future of e-business and social media. And it's huge. It's only going to continue to grow, right? More and more things are happening online, and really making this a global economy rather than a local economy in most cases. And some people like to buy local. They like to do things only local, and that's great. But in some places, some instances, you can't do that. Like you have to buy online. Some people prefer to buy online and limit their social interaction with a local business. Also great. But businesses that cannot keep up or at least have some sort of social media or e-business presence, they're going to lose out. I mean, think of just in the news this week, like yesterday, they were talking about it on the evening news, Bed Bath & Beyond going out of business. And Bed Bath & Beyond specifically stated in their whatever it's called, their dossier, that part of their problem, a big part of their problem, was that they did not adapt to online fast enough or at all. They never really had an online presence, and that drove them out of business because you have to be able to meet your customers where they want to be met. Not everybody wants to go to a store or has access to go to a store. So you have to think about that as you're growing your products and your brands. So this is a very important discussion. So definitely read the chapter, read through it. Something that as an associate of a business or an owner of a business is very important. The social media that your company puts out and the way that it affects your brand and your products. So a great discussion. Definitely read through. Think about, there's no discussion this week in the class, but think about as you're reading the companies that come to mind when you are reading about these things, right? So what are the brands that you see as you're getting ads through Facebook or your games or whatever it is that you use? Like I said, I'm old, so I use Facebook. But think about the ads that you see. How do they make you feel? Do they make you want to buy things? Do they raise or lower your opinion of a brand based on what you see online? So it's a very important discussion, and we'll continue to be more and more important, you know, as technology increases. And one of the things the book talks about in the future, actually the book doesn't talk about it, they should talk about it in the future. They talk about technology, but what about AI? What about all the things we've seen about AI recently? It's huge. And businesses are going to be using more and more AI to do their analytics and to determine who gets what. I mean, sometimes it feels like, you know, social media can read your mind. You don't even have to tell your phone that you're looking for something, and it knows that you're looking for it, right? And you see ads for it. That's going to continue more and more. You know, so definitely considerations for the future. So, all right, thank you guys. Have a great week. As I said, reach out if you need anything. That project is due next Friday. It's a big part of your grade, so make sure you're working on it, and reach out if you need anything. Thanks. Talk to you next week.